So one of the things that we need to work on to make this game more realistic is that idea of gravity. You can see as I take my little character and I move across, now all of a sudden I am not attached to anything. So what we're going to do for step 2 is we're looking at gravity and jumping. So the first thing that we need to do in this case is we actually need to create a variable, and in this case we're going to call this variable gravity. Be very careful with what you name it and how you type it, because these things are indeed actually case sensitive. So later on I do need to remember that I have a capital G for gravity here. And in this case, since we really only have one sprite for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to actually just say for all sprites. So gravity is going to be in place for everybody, not just this little guy in particular. So again, you can see the gravity piece up here, sometimes good to troubleshoot. So we're going to look at our gravity value and how this is going to affect our little character as we move across the stage. So you can hide it. You can unclick this little check mark here and it'll disappear, or you can leave it. But like I said, for right now, I like to use it because it is nice to have for troubleshooting. So what I like to do for this, you can actually code this a couple different ways. You can either code it underneath the character, or you can code it underneath the backdrop. Since it is going to be affecting this person, I'm going to make sure that I code it underneath them. So I'm going to say when clicking this, and I'm just going to write a whole different set of things. I want to set my gravity always, and I'm going to actually cancel out my Y values. So I'm going to actually just say I'm going to set this to -4. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put actually a forever loop in here. So I'm going to tell it to forever, and then I want to actually change my Y by gravity. So I'm going to have a motion here, and I'm going to say change Y by, and then I want to change that actually by my data, which is indeed my gravity piece here. So I'm going to say change Y by gravity. So now when I click the flag, okay, you can see that my little guy will continue to fall forever. So again, he kind of hides off the stage. So now what we have to do is do something a little bit different. So, excuse me. So now when we're looking at this is that we don't want to forever change by gravity, but we actually want to put this into an if-then statement. So we want to actually put in the controls if then what. So we only want gravity in the fact that he's not touching the color blue or pink. So we're going to do if, and then looking at our operators, and not will be the easiest way to get rid of both of these. And we're going to put in an or function. So if not touching this or that. So we want to look at the two colors. So again, sensing. So we're touching this color or touching that color. So again, just to double check to make sure you have the right color selected here. You want to make sure that this is our blue. So we have all of the stuff being the same exact blue. And we want the color pink, which looks pretty close, but just to double check, we want to also have the color pink. So if not touching these two, then we want to be able to be changed by that of gravity. So now if we look at this, okay, we want to have him, looks like he's running into the ground here. If we walk off, you can see that he falls right down, and then they move back up, and you can move across. So now it looks like gravity is indeed in effect here. Okay, can't go up or down regardless if I'm touching the color pink. So in this case now I have nice smooth movement going left to right and up and down the ladder. So the next thing that we also want to do is we want to have maybe the possibility for a jumping. So what we want to do, instead of having the green arrow clicked, what we want to do is when something is pressed, so in this case we want the space bar, we want to actually have something take place. So we want to actually have this take place, this movement. We're going to say 10 times, but we're going to look at the motion and we're going to have it move, and not move steps, but since we're jumping, we only change the Y value. So we want to change Y by, say, 4. So now if we look at this and we run this line of code, as I click my space bar, you can see that this character doesn't really jump a whole lot. So based off from your height needs, you can change this value. So if I change this to 10, now you can see as I jump, I have a much larger jump. Okay, so one thing you will notice with this is that if I hold this down, I'm going to continue to jump pretty much forever until you jump off the page. So one of the things that you need to do is you need to create another variable that talks about jump height. So when you're looking at this, we're going to have our data, and we're going to actually make a new variable, and we're going to call this variable jump height. And based off from this, we can now write a line of code that changes this piece, because we don't want our jump height to continue on forever and ever and ever. So what we want to do is that when we're doing this line of code, we want to set our jump height to that of 0, but we want to repeat or have this jumping motion repeat until something happens. So we want to repeat until. So you want to be able to jump, but you want to be able to jump in a certain manner that you're not continuously jumping up and up and up. So we got to actually use our data here, and we're actually going to use an operator because we want this to actually equal a certain function. So we want it to actually equal that of 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this function in here, and we're going to say that when our jump height, so our data and our jump height, equals that of 0, we want to be able to now change our jump height. So we want to change our y by our jump height. So this jump height again is going to be the distance in which you jump, so it's not continuous over and over and over again. And then what we want to do is we want to change our jump height by, so we give some type of falling motion, so negative 0.5 at this piece. So now when you look at this, you're going to look at your character moving, and again looking at your troubleshooting values, you can see that I'm going to fall, but as I jump, oh, my apologies, I forgot to switch our jump height. So if I change my jump height to 8, now as I jump, you can see that this value is moving, and you can hold down spacebar, but you cannot continue to jump any higher. So now this is where our values are going to be changed. So if we want to change this by 10, you can see that it'll keep jumping. In this case, it's falling faster or not fast enough to get this value to change. So if we use the number of 8 here, you're going to see that this indeed now allows it to fall quick enough to where it goes up and down. If you want them to fall faster, you can change that faster so that you can jump higher. Another value you can kind of switch around. Changing these values again will allow you to jump higher or lower. So if I do by 10, but I change this by -1, now as you see, not quite fast enough. So with -1, so we'll try -2. So now I can get that jump height, and actually this appears to be jumping too fast. So again, something you can play around with your values here in order to make them jump higher or lower. But for right now, we're just going to turn this back because we know that this one actually does indeed work. So we're going to use -0.05 and 0.5 in this case. So now that when you jump, you can indeed see that he goes up and down at a equivocal rate. And again, I don't want any of these, so I can just disappear those. And that completes step 2.